And now let's revisit our top story this hour and Donald Trump's announcement that his meeting with President Putin will be taking place in Alaska on the 15th of August, which is next Friday. Certainly a crucial moment when it comes to diplomatic relationship between the United States and Russia, and of course for the war in Ukraine as well. For more on this, let's get some analysis from Thomas Remington. He's a visiting professor of government at Harvard University, and he joins me now live from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Professor, great to have you here with us on TRT World. As I mentioned, it is a significant development. But you know, what I have been thinking about, what do you think acted as a catalyst for Donald Trump to completely change his stance on Russia? Because up until last week, he was very critical of President Putin. In fact, he gave President Putin a deadline, which was supposed to expire today. And now here we are. They're going to be meeting next week in Alaska on the 15th of August. So what changed for Donald Trump?
I think the criticism that Trump made towards Putin was part of a process of trying to get Putin to accept some kind of a negotiated agreement. And as you recall, President Trump just sent his intermediary, Stephen Witkoff, to Russia and to Kiev to discuss possible terms of an agreement. I unfortunately don't think that the talks in Alaska are likely to produce very much. It's been disappointing that although President Trump has been very eager to be seen as brokering a deal, as he has just done with Armenia and Azerbaijan, and he's tried to broker many others with respect to tariffs as well as conflicts, he has not been willing to put in the painstaking effort of diplomacy to negotiate an agreement that can actually hold. So the signing agreements are lovely, but in the case of Ukraine, without U.S. and Western security guarantees, there's absolutely no assurance that the agreement won't be forgotten on the next day.
Professor, based on what we are seeing happen right now, and especially the rhetoric coming from Donald Trump himself, do you think it's likely that Ukraine might be asked to make some serious compromises, make some serious concessions in order for any sort of deal to happen between Russia and Ukraine?
I'd say it's certain that Ukraine will be asked to make territorial concessions. I think that's a given. You never enter a negotiating process by giving in and telling your opponent what you're willing to concede. The key is not so much the territorial concessions, which President Trump spoke about earlier, but rather whether President Trump and NATO are willing to secure the agreement with peacekeeping troops along the line of separation and to be stationing them in the country for the long term, because as every Ukrainian will immediately tell you, there's nothing to prevent Putin, even if they get a ceasefire, from violating it the next day. So without security guarantees that are ironclad, this agreement will be relatively worthless.
And Professor, what you were saying makes total sense, but what I wonder is, why is Donald Trump so conveniently ignoring these facts? And if there is a peace deal in which Ukraine is asked to compromise, what kind of precedent do you think it's going to set for the world? I mean, many would say that it will basically mean military aggression pays off.
The agreement will be hollow unless there is this series of follow-up steps involving security, legitimate, real, concrete security guarantees. Ukraine will not give up territory until both a ceasefire has been declared and it holds, and there are actual boots on the ground to protect what territories Ukraine is being granted. So it is possible that we will see the start of a process of disengagement, and then there will have to be a zone of separation, and then there will have to be Western peacekeeping troops on the Western side to protect the Ukrainian territory that remains. So I don't think Ukraine will cede anything until there's a legitimate armistice, which is protected by actual power on the ground.
Now, Professor, of course, Europe has remained at the forefront of this conflict, and President Zelensky has stated already that he wants the European Union to be involved in any sort of in these peace talks. But do you think it's likely that Donald Trump would want any sort of participation from Europe when it comes to signing a possible peace deal?
I think we've seen in some of the statements President Trump has made over the last several months that he expects Europeans to carry the financial burden of reconstruction, the security burden. This was the case with this minerals deal that you recall President Trump claimed to have achieved, but without any real commitment on the part of American or Western firms to go in and actually do the lengthy work of exploration and extraction. So President Trump may want somebody else to carry the burden of providing security guarantees as well as financing. And Europeans are probably willing to provide some level of security guarantees, even troops. But the NATO allies, the most important ones, have said they are reluctant to commit troops to the front line, to the line of separation. Well, without that, these whatever terms are written on paper will be meaningless. So President Trump will have to follow through and guarantee that America is part of a deal which America has helped bring about.
Fascinating insights. Professor Thomas Remington, thanks very much for joining me here on TRT World. I really appreciate your taking out the time.
You're most welcome. Bye-bye.